There's a lot to get through on this politics and other, but what do we make of the domestic side of this and the way that, as Robert Fox was saying, the Prime Minister is standing his ground on this one against the White House?
I think that this raises so many questions. There are so many questions that this raises, and you're quite right on the domestic front. What do we do? Donald Trump either responds to complete flattery and sort of ego stroking or strength. Those are the two strategies that you could have with Donald Trump. And I think that our relationship, I think Keir Starmer is one of, if not the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. However, he does seem to have quite a good relationship with Donald Trump. Now, he has said, you're quite right, he's condemned it, saying that these tariffs are completely wrong. And let's make no bones about it. This would not be good for the United Kingdom. Tariffs are not a good thing. It's just, what does Keir Starmer do from here? And I think also, crucially, we have the King is due to visit the United States. So what role will that take? I think this is one of those occasions where actually it's brilliant. You know, anyone who complains about us having a monarchy, this is a brilliant occasion for us to have a monarchy. Now, Donald Trump wants to do a deal. That is what Donald Trump is all about. I think that there is a little bit of hysteria around all of this. I think you raised a really valid point there, Anne, about that this is his style. He throws out a crazy warning shot, and then actually he kind of climbs down subtly a little bit in order to get the deal across the line. He has worked as a property magnate, you know, until now. Obviously, that's how he made his money. And that's clearly his strategy. You know, you lowball, and then whatever else you get on top seems quite good. And I think that this is his strategy here. And I think that we all need to remember that that's something that he does. What will Starmer do next? That is the big question. Will Starmer choose to stand up to him and stand his ground, as you said, or try and negotiate, do a deal? But when you look at what happened with Chagos, when you look at the weakness that he showed over Chagos, when you look at him handing over these islands, having to pay money, I don't have faith that Starmer is the right man to do this.
And is there a danger with his coalition of the willing and everything that at some point, if he decides to stand up, we're strong enough together to stand up to President Trump, he could turn around and find no one behind him? Because do we trust the other members of that coalition of the willing to actually stand by Britain?
And what else? And actually, what can they all do? Whether they stood with him or not. What are people going to do? Are they going to declare war on America? Are we going to say, right, well, that's it, we're turning our back on America? No, that's not going to happen. This has exposed the delicacy and the weakness of Europe, of NATO, of all of those places. And I just want to take issue. I thought that when he's talking about China and Russia, and many experts have said, look, there isn't this threat from China and Russia around Greenland. Well, does Donald Trump know something that we don't? That's my only question around that. I don't know, but I am confused as to why he's doing it. There is unbelievable mineral wealth in Greenland, but it's really difficult to get.
It's very difficult to mine, isn't it?
It's difficult to get to. But then also, as the ice caps are melting, it is becoming slightly easier to get to it. So is he thinking long term? Is this blackmail? And what does this mean for what Europe could do next? I don't think Europe have got the strength, either individually or as a group, to stand up to him.
All right.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Can we move away from that for a moment?
Do we have to? Because I think it's fascinating.
Well, it is fascinating, but what else is fascinating is what's happening within political parties here in the UK. We've got more infighting in the government now, particularly over Wes Streeting. We've got, obviously, the whole generic business and what's happening between Tories and Reform. I mean, the whole thing looks like quite a mess, really, depending on what side of the fence you sit on.
It's worrying from the point of view that is the vote on the right going to get so fractured between the Conservatives and Reform that we could end up with another Labour government, heaven forbid, or a Labour-Green coalition.
They can't let that happen.
Well, but then look at the 80s. Look at the SDP and Labour and look at how Thatcher romped home 3 times, partly, I mean, she was a phenomenal Prime Minister, but partly as well because of the weakness of a fractured left. Could the same happen here? It's a really, really interesting time because I was really scathing about Robert Jenrick on Friday when I was talking about this, because I worry about Reform's selling point being that they are the alternative. We are not like all those people in Westminster. Yet Jenrick was the person who brought in the hotels, the asylum hotels. He was part of a government that is a part of the problems that they have tried to distance themselves from. Reform, this is, from the last 14 years.
But he did also quit on principle as immigration minister.
So are we saying, or is one saying, that, OK, if you're not Prime Minister, then basically you do get a bit more of a pass as to what your government does? Because if that's the case, then why is that courtesy not being paid to Kemi? Because Kemi also was just a member of the government rather than the leader of the party.
But she is getting that, isn't she?
Well, she says, look, I'm sorry, I wasn't... I think there's hypocrisy from her as well, by the way, because she's also said, she wrote in her op-ed with the Telegraph, well, look, there were loads of problems with the Conservatives, I'm sort of paraphrasing her, but sorry, I wasn't Prime Minister then. Well, look, are we either giving people a free pass because they're not Prime Minister, or are we holding them to account? And I think both sides, there is some hypocrisy.
And what do you make of the revelations that have come out more or less overnight, front page of the Daily Mail today, the Mail on Sunday, that apart from Jenrick apparently leaving his speech lying around so that it could be leaked to Kemi Badenoch, not just that, there are more things, documents in there, that suggest that he was going to sell himself, presumably to us and Reform UK, as the, new sheriff in town.
I really want to be a fly on the wall when Nigel Farage were to read that, because Nigel Farage is like a massive part of why people like Reform, and I don't think he'd like that. Can Nigel Farage balance the benefit of members of a former government that have that experience, but also the ego that goes along with that? Can he balance that with his own ambitions and not liking those people around him? So it's a really, really interesting time. And as time goes on, I heard on Alex Armstrong's show a really good point being made about, we are still a couple of years away from an election at least. Will Jenrick and Zahawi and all of those people be so embedded in Reform in a couple or 3 years' time that actually we'll have all forgotten that they were Conservatives before, and actually now is the time that Reform are getting their house in order on all of this?
Well, I sort of think you will, in a way, because, I mean, look at Lee Anderson.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't think of Lee Anderson as anything. We don't think of him as a former Conservative and former Labour MP, do we?
And I was outraged about this on Friday, but 2 days later, I'm like, well, OK, yeah, I can see why Jenrick's doing it. And that's only been 48 hours. So in 3 years...
As long as he he behaves himself. As long as he doesn't threaten Farage or get up Farage's nose. And today's headline on the front page of the Mail on Sunday, I'm the new sheriff in town. And it's clearly a briefing document that he approved, more or less, because his handwriting is on the side making notes.
Yeah, it was like a media plan document,
it was a media plan, yes, it clearly was. I'm the new sheriff in town isn't a very good way to go into a new party with Nigel Farage as leader.
With Nigel Farage as a leader, exactly. Will those egos be able to be put aside for the good of the country? And also, again, I'll just make the point again, will the right, if you are a Conservative or a Reform voter, are we in dangerous ground? And actually, are those parties handing Labour and Greens and the Liberal Dems a potential win in 3 years' time? I think that remains to be seen. It's exciting times.
Oh, it's remarkable. It's better than Panto, all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, and probably a bit less camp. Or maybe more camp.
Except
Maybe more.
that it affects our lives. Who gets in the next election is almost more important than who got in the last
I think
one.
most people are just more concerned about who we get rid of in the next election.
Well, yes. Yes.
Which I think is a lot more important, perhaps.
Yeah.